Playwright Debugging in Cloud-Native Applications. Introduction. Playwright debugging is the process of finding and fixing end-to-end test failures in browser-based applications using tools like traces, screenshots, videos, logs, network inspection, and CI artifacts. Cloud-native applications are applications built using containers, microservices, APIs, CI/CD, Kubernetes, observability, and scalable cloud infrastructure. Full stack and backend developers use Playwright debugging to fix issues in React applications, Angular applications, Next.js applications, Spring Boot APIs, microservices, Kubernetes deployments, Docker test environments, CI/CD pipelines, authentication flows, API integration tests, flaky E2E tests, production-like test environments. A common learning topic is how can developers debug Playwright tests in cloud-native applications step by step? This guide explains Playwright basics, local debugging, headed mode, Playwright Inspector, trace viewer, screenshots, videos, network debugging, console logs, Docker debugging, Kubernetes debugging, CI/CD debugging, authentication debugging, API debugging, flaky test debugging, best practices. Playwright's official docs describe Trace Viewer as a GUI tool for exploring recorded traces after a test runs, especially useful when tests fail in CI. Playwright also documents video recording, CI setup, and Docker images that include browsers and required system dependencies. Playwright.dev, Playwright.dev, Playwright.dev. Simple definition. Playwright debugging means understanding why a browser test failed and fixing the real issue. Simple idea. Playwright test runs. Test fails. Check trace, screenshot, video, logs. Find root cause. Fix test or application. Example. User clicks login. Expected dashboard. Actual error page. Debug trace shows API returned 401. Fix authentication setup. Why cloud-native developers need Playwright debugging. Cloud-native applications often have many moving parts. Check. Frontend app. Check. Backend API. Check. Database. Check. Message broker. Check. Authentication service. Check. Kubernetes ingress. Environment variables. Check. Feature flags. Check. CI/CD pipeline. A Playwright failure may come from this. Check. Front-end bug. Back-end API bug. Bad test data. Wrong environment variable. Docker networking issue. Kubernetes ingress issue. Authentication issue. Timeout issue. Race condition. Flaky UI behavior. So, debugging must connect browser test, front-end, back-end API, database/services, cloud-native environment, Playwright architecture overview. Typical Playwright testing architecture. Playwright test runner, present, browser, front-end application, back-end APIs, database services, cloud-native example. GitHub Actions, Playwright container, React app container, Spring Boot API container, PostgreSQL container, test report, trace, video, Playwright in cloud-native applications. Example system. React frontend, Spring Boot backend, PostgreSQL, Redis, RabbitMQ Kafka, Docker Compose, Kubernetes, GitHub Actions. Playwright validates. Start login flow, user journey, API integration, form submission, routing, authorization, dashboard display, error handling, front-end back-end contract. Step 1. Install Playwright. Install. npm init Playwright at latest. Run tests. npx Playwright test. Open report. npx Playwright show report. Basic project structure. Playwright.config.ts. Tests/example.spec.ts. Package.json test results. Playwright.report. Step 2. Create first test. Example. Import. Test. Expect. From @Playwright test. Test. Homepage should load. async page. Await page.go to http localhost 3000. Await expect page to have title home. Run. npx playwright test. Step 3. Run in headed mode. Headed mode opens the browser visually. Command npx playwright test -headed. Use headed mode when test passes locally but fails visually. Click is not happening. Modal blocks the page. Wrong page opens. Animation causes issue. Locator targets wrong element. Simple idea. Headless equals hidden browser. Headed equals visible browser. Step 4. Use Playwright Inspector. Run. npx playwright test -debug. This opens Playwright Inspector. Useful for step-by-step execution, checking locators, checking test, inspecting page, seeing actions live. Example. Await page pause. When test reaches this line, Playwright pauses. Step 5. Use Trace Viewer. Trace Viewer is one of the best Playwright debugging tools. Enable tracing in config. Import define config from @playwright test. Export default define config. Use trace on first retry and options off, on retain, on failure, on first retry. Open trace. npx playwright show trace trace.zip. Trace viewer helps inspect. Test actions. DOM snapshots. Screenshots. Console logs. Network calls. Source code. Timing. Playwright's trace viewer can open traces locally or in the browser and is designed for post-run debugging, especially for CI failures. Playwright.dev. Step 6. Use screenshots. Take screenshot manually. Await page.screenshot. Path, screenshots login page.png, full page, true. Configure screenshots on failure. Export default, define config. Use screenshot only on failure. Use screenshots for visual failures, wrong page state, broken layout, missing button, modal blocking UI, environment-specific rendering issue. Step 7. Use videos. Enable videos. Export default, define config. Use video, retain on failure. Video options include off, on retain on failure, on first retry. Playwright videos are off by default and can be configured in Playwright config. Use videos for flaky test debugging, animation issues, timing issues, navigation problems, click problems, CI-only failures. Step 8. Debug locators. Bad locator. Await page.click button. Problem. There may be many buttons. Better locator. Await page.getByRole button. Name login. Click. Good locator strategy. Cat by role, cat by label, cat by text, cat by placeholder, cat by test ID, accessible names. Example. Await page get by label email.fill. User at example.com. Await page get by label password, fill password. Await page get by role button, name sign in. Click. Step 9. Debug timeout errors. Common timeout error. Timeout 30,000 milliseconds exceeded. Possible causes. Element not visible. API slow. Page did not navigate. Wrong locator. Backend not running. Docker networking issue. Animation delay. Authentication failed. Debug steps. 1. Check screenshot. 2. Check trace. 3. Check locator. 4. Check network calls. 5. Check backend logs. 6. Check environment URL. 7. Check test data. Step 10. Debug waiting problems. Bad. Await page.wait for timeout. 5,000. Better. Await expect page.getByText dashboard to be visible. Better API wait. Await page.wait for response. Response equals response.url includes API users me. and response.status equals 200. Rule: wait for condition, not random time. Step 11. Debug network calls. Capture failed responses. Page.onResponse. Response equal. If response status equals to 400, console log failed response. Response status, response URL. Capture requests. Page on request. Request equals console.log request method request URL dot. Use this when C. Page shows error. C. API returns 401. C. API returns 500. C. Backend URL is wrong. C. CORS issue happens. C. Request payload is wrong. Step 12. Debug console errors. Capture browser console. Page on console. Message. Console log. Browser console. Message type. Message text. Capture page errors. Page on. Page error. Error. Console. Console log. Page error. Page error. Useful for: check JavaScript runtime errors. Check React errors. Check missing environment variables. Check failed imports. Check front-end crashes. Step 13. Debug authentication flow. Common authentication failures. Check login API returns 401. Check token not stored. Check cookie missing. Check same site cookie issue. Wrong domain. Wrong base URL. Expired token. Check test user missing. Backend auth config wrong. Debug checklist. 1. Check login request. 2. Check login response. 3. Check token cookie storage. 4. Check redirect after login. 5. Check protected API request. 6. Check authorization header. 7. Check backend security logs. Example: check const cookies equals await page.context.cookies console.log cookies. Step 14. Reuse auth state. Playwright can save login state. Setup example. Import test as setup. Expect from @playwright test. Setup. Authenticate. Async. Page. Await page.goto. HTTPS localhost 3000 login. Await page.getByLabel email.fill test@example.com. Await page.getByLabel password.fill password. Await page.getByRole button. Name login.click. Await expect page.getByText dashboard to be visible. Await page.context storage state path playwright.auth user.json. Sush. Use auth state. Export default. Define config. Use. Storage state. Playwright.auth user.json. Benefits. Check. Faster tests. Fewer login repetitions. More stable tests. Step 15. Debug API directly. Playwright can call APIs directly. Example. Test. Create test user by API. Async. API.const response equals await request.post http://localhost 800 API test users. Data email test@example.com. Password. Expect response OK to be truthy. Useful for test setup, seed data, cleanup, backend validation, faster tests. Step 16. Debug Docker issues. Common Docker Playwright issues. Check browsers not installed. Check missing browser dependencies. Check wrong base image. Check app URL wrong. Check localhost confusion. Check container networking issue. Check report not accessible. Check file permissions. Playwright provides official Docker images for running Playwright in Docker environments. The docs note that the Docker image includes browsers and browser system dependencies, but project dependencies still need to be installed. Step 17. Docker file example from mcr.microsoft.com/playwright v1.50.0-noble. workdir/app. Copy package.json. Run npm ci. Copy ... cmd npx playwright test. Important. Use a Playwright Docker image version that matches your project Playwright version. Docker Hub's Microsoft Playwright image notes that if the Docker image version does not match the Playwright version in your project tests, Playwright may not locate browser executables correctly. hub.docker.com. Step 18. Docker Compose example services, frontend. Build.frontend. Ports 3000 to 3000. Backend. Build. Backend ports 80. Environment. Spring profiles active. Test. Postgres. Image Postgres 16. Environment Postgres DB. App test. Postgres user test. Postgres password test. Playwright. Build. E2E depends on. Frontend. Backend. Environment. Base URL. HTTPS. Frontend: 3000. Important Docker networking rule. Inside Docker Compose, use service names like frontend or backend. Do not use localhost to reach another container. Step 19. Debug localhost problem. Common mistake. Playwright container tries to open http://localhost 3000. Problem. Inside the Playwright container, localhost means the Playwright container itself. Better. Isn't http://frontend.3000. For backend, http://8080. Step 20. Wait for services in Docker. Depends on does not always mean the app is ready. Better approach. Wait until frontend and backend health endpoints are ready. Example script. --bin ash. Until curl -f. HTTP frontend 3000. Do echo waiting for frontend. Sleep 2 done. Until curl-f. HTTP backend 8080 actuator health. Do echo waiting for backend. Sleep 2 done. npx Playwright test. Step 21. Debug CI failures. Playwright CI docs recommend ensuring the CI agent can run browsers by using the official Docker image on Linux agents or installing browsers and system dependencies using npx Playwright install -with deps. Common CI failures. Missing browser dependencies. Tests run before app starts. Wrong environment URL. Secret not configured. Database not seeded. Slow CI machine. Screenshots not uploaded. Trace artifacts missing. Headless only timing issue. Debug checklist. 1. Upload trace artifacts. 2. Upload screenshots. 3. Upload videos. 4. Print base URL. 5. Print environment variables safely. 6. Check app startup logs. 7. Check backend logs. 8. Check service readiness. 9. Run failed test with retries. 10. Compare local versus CI config. Step 22. GitHub Actions. Example name, Playwright tests. On. Pull request. Push, branches, main. Jobs. E2E runs on Ubuntu latest. Steps. Uses actions checkout.v4. Uses actions setup node at v4 with node version 22. Name install dependencies run npm CI. Name install Playwright browsers run npx Playwright install -with deps. Name run Playwright tests run npx Playwright test. Name upload Playwright report if always. Uses actions upload artifact at v4 with name Playwright report path Playwright report. Step 23. Upload trace artifacts. Always upload reports on failure or always. Example. Name. Upload test results. If, always. Uses actions upload artifact at v4 with name test results. Artifacts should include :trace zip, :screenshots, :videos, :HTML report, :logs. Step 24. Debug Kubernetes issues. Playwright tests may target apps running in Kubernetes. Common problems. Check. Ingress route wrong. Check. TOS certificate issue. Check. Service not ready. Check. Pod crash loop back off. Check. Backend returns 503. Check. Readiness probe failing. Check. Cores misconfigured. Check. Environment variable missing. Database migration not applied. Useful commands. kubectl get pods and my namespace. kubectl describe pod my pod and my namespace. kubectl logs my pod and my namespace. kubectl get ingress and my namespace. kubectl get svc and my namespace. Step 25. Debug ingress problems. Symptoms. Page not loading. 502 bad gateway. 503 service unavailable. TLS error. Check. 1. Ingress host. 2. Ingress path. 3. Service name. 4. Service port. 5. Pod readiness. 6. Backend logs. 7. TLS certificate. Playwright check. Const response equals await page.goto process.env.base.url. Expect response.status to be less than 400. Step 26. Debug Spring Boot backend issues. When Playwright fails, check backend. Application logs, /actuator health, API status codes, database connection, authentication logs, CORS logs, request payload, test user exists. Example Playwright network debug. Page on response, async response, if response.url.includes/API and response.status beyond 400. Console log response.status, response.url, SCP. Step 27. Debug database test data. Many E2E failures are data problems. Common issues. Check. Test user missing. Order not created. Database not cleaned. Old data affects test. Migration failed. Test uses wrong tenant. ID changes between runs. Best practices. COC. See data before tests. Clean data after tests. Use test-specific users. Avoid depending on existing data. Isolate test tenant. Use API setup instead of UI setup. Step 28. Debug flaky tests. Flaky test means sometimes passes, sometimes fails. Common causes. Check. Random waits, animations, network delays, test data conflict, parallel test conflict, shared user account, order-dependent tests, backend slow response, unstable locator, missing assertion wait. Fix. Help. Use reliable locators. Wait for specific state. Isolate test data. Avoid shared accounts. Use unique test IDs. Reduce dependency between tests. Use trace on retry. Inspect videos. Step 29. Parallel test debugging. Playwright runs tests in parallel by default, depending on configuration. Common parallel issues. Tests use same user. Tests update same data. Tests delete shared records. Tests depend on order. Database cleanup conflicts. Better. Const unique email equals test date.now @example.com. Better design. Each test creates its own data. Each test cleans its own data. Tests do not depend on order. Step 30. Debug environment variables. Common issue. Works locally, but fails in CI. Check. Base URL, API URL, test username, test password, feature flags, environment profile, tenant ID, Kubernetes namespace. Example. Const base URL equals process.env.base.url www.https:// localhost 3000. Test.before each async.page, goto base URL. Do not print secrets. Safe logging. Console.log base URL process.env.base URL console.log test user configured boolean process.env.test user Playwright debug config recommended config import define config devices from @playwright test export default define config tester tests timeout 30,000 retries process.env.ci 2 or 0 workers process.env.ci 2 or undefined reporter HTML list Use base URL, process.env.base URL, HTTPS, localhost 3000. Trace, on first retry. Screenshot, only on failure. Video, retain on failure. Projects, and name Chromium. Use displaced desktop Chrome. Debugging checklist. When a test fails, check. Error message. Screenshot. Video. Trace. Browser console logs. Failed network calls. Backend logs. Database state. Environment variables. Docker. Kubernetes networking. Test data. Locator stability. Timeout settings. Common error 1. Element not found. Error. Locator click. Timeout exceeded. Possible causes. See wrong. Locator. Element hidden. Page not loaded. Wrong route. Authentication failed. Modal blocking. API failed. Fix. Await expect. Page.getByRole button name login to be visible. Await page.getByRole button name login. Click. Common error 2. API returns 401. Symptoms. Dashboard does not load. Protected API fails. Check. Check. Token exists. Authorization header sent. Cookie domain correct. Same site cookie config. Backend JWT issuer audience. Test user credentials. Token expired. Common error 3. API returns 500. Check. Backend logs. Request payload. Database migration. Missing test data. Environment config. Service dependency. Exception stack trace. Playwright helps identify the failing request through trace and network logs. Common error 4. Test passes locally, but fails in CI. Possible causes. Slower CI environment. Missing browser dependencies. App not ready. Wrong base URL. Missing secrets. Test data not seeded. Parallel conflict. Time zone difference. Docker networking issue. Fixes. Use readiness checks. Use upload traces. Reduce workers temporarily. Use reliable waits. Seed data explicitly. Match Docker image versions. Common error 5. Browser not found. Error may happen when browsers are not installed. Fix. npx playwright install -- with deps or use official Docker image. Common error 6. CORS failure. Browser console may show CORS error. Check. Check. Frontend origin. Backend CORS config. Check. Credential setting. Check. Cookies. API gateway headers. Check. Kubernetes ingress. Spring Boot example. Registry.add mapping API/API allowed origins http:/localhost 3000 allowed methods true. Common error 7. Report not available in Docker. Problem. HTML report generated inside container but not visible on host. Fix. Account mount volume. Copy artifacts. Upload artifacts in CI. Expose report port only if needed. Example Docker compose volume. Volumes. Playwright report app playwright report test results app test results. Use this flow. 1. Reproduce locally. 2. Run headed mode. 3. Run with #debug. 4. Inspect trace. 5. Inspect screenshots videos. 6. Check browser console. 7. Check network calls. 8. Check backend logs. 9. Check Docker Kubernetes networking. Check CI artifacts. 11. Fix root cause. 12. Add better assertion or test data setup. Real-world case study 1. Login fails in CI. Symptom. Login test passes locally, but fails in GitHub Actions. Trace shows. Post, API, off, login, means 401. Root causes. Test password, secret missing. Test user not seeded. Wrong API URL. Backend uses different profile. Fix. Add CI secret. Seed test user before tests. Print safe config. Upload traces. Check backend logs. Real world case study 2. Order status not updated. Symptom, Playwright expects completed, but sees pending. Architecture. Frontend. Spring Boot API. RabbitMQ. Order worker. Database. Possible causes. Cap. Async worker not running. Cap. RabbitMQ queue has backlog. Cap. Message failed and went to DLQ. Cap. Frontend polls too early. Cap. Database transaction delayed. Hurricane. Wait for specific status with timeout. Check RabbitMQ queue. Check worker logs. Check database state. Improve test setup. Example. Await expect page.getByText completed to be visible. Timeout 60,000. Real-world case study 3. Kubernetes ingress 503 symptom. Playwright page.goto base URL. Check. kubectl get pods-n app. kubectl get svc-n app. kubectl get ingress-n app. kubectl describe ingress app ingress-n app. Common causes. Tick. Pod not ready. Tick. Service selector mismatch. Tick. Wrong service port. Tick. Readiness probe failing. Tick. App crashed. Ingress path mismatch. Fix. Correct labels/selectors. Fix readiness endpoint. Verify service target port. Check app logs. Best practices. Check. Use trace viewer for failures. Check. Enable screenshots on failure. Check. Enable videos on failure. Check. Upload CI artifacts. Check. Use stable locators. Check. Avoid random sleeps. Check. Wait for user visible state. Check. Capture network failures. Check. Capture console errors. Check. Seed test data explicitly. Check. Isolate test users. Check. Use Docker service names. Health checks before tests. Quote. Use official Playwright Docker images. Quote. Match Playwright Docker image version with project version. Quote. Debug backend logs with correlation IDs. Quote. Reduce parallel workers when debugging flaky tests. Quote. Run tests against production-like environment. Quote. Never log secrets. Common beginner mistakes. 1. Using localhost wrong in Docker. Bad. http://localhost 3000 from Playwright container. Better. http://frontend:3000. Bad. Await page.wait for timeout 5000. Better. Await expect page.getByText dashboard to be visible. 3. Not uploading traces in CI. Without traces, CI debugging becomes guesswork. 4. Sharing same test user everywhere. Parallel tests can break each other. Better. Use unique users or isolated test tenants. 5. Ignoring backend logs. Playwright failure may be caused by backend 500 or 401. 6. Not checking network calls. Always inspect API calls in trace or response listeners. 7. Testing too much in one test. Bad. Login means create order means pay, means ship, means report, means logout. Better. Split into focused user journeys. Playwright debugging interview questions. 1. What is Playwright? Playwright is an end-to-end testing framework for automating browsers and testing web applications. 2. How do you debug a Playwright test locally? Use npx playwright test -headed npx playwright test -debug. Also use await page pause. 3. What is Playwright Trace Viewer? Trace Viewer is a GUI tool that shows test actions, DOM snapshots, screenshots, network calls, console logs, source code, and timing after a test run. 4. How do you debug Playwright failures in CI? Upload traces, screenshots, videos, HTML report, logs. Then inspect the failing step. 5. Why do tests pass locally but fail in CI? Common reasons. Slower CI machine. Missing end variables. Wrong base URL. App not ready. Test data missing. Docker networking issue. Parallel conflicts. 6. How do you debug API failures in Playwright? Listen to responses. Page on response. Response if. Response status equal 400. Console log response status, response.url. Use stable locators, explicit assertions, isolated data, proper waits, traces on retry, and avoid fixed sleeps. 8. How do you run Playwright in Docker? Use official Playwright Docker images or install browsers and dependencies inside the image. 9. What is the common Docker localhost mistake? Inside a container, localhost refers to the same container, not another service. Use Docker Compose service names. 10. How do you debug Kubernetes-based E2E failures? Check ingress, service, pods, readiness, logs, environment variables, and backend API responses. 30-day learning plan. Week 1. Playwright Basics. Learn. Check test syntax. Check page.goto. Locators. Check assertions. Check headed mode, debug mode. Practice. Build simple login and dashboard tests. Week 2. Debugging tools. Learn. Yep. Trace viewer, screenshots, videos, console logs, network logs, test reports. Practice. Create failing tests and debug them using Trace. Week 3. Cloud native testing. Learn. Docker Compose, service names, health checks, CI artifacts, GitHub Actions, backend logs. Practice. Run Playwright against React plus Spring Boot plus PostgreSQL using Docker Compose. Week 4. Production-like debugging. Learn. Kubernetes ingress, pod logs, API failures, auth failures, flaky tests, test data isolation, async workflow testing. Practice. Run Playwright tests against a Kubernetes test environment. Real-world project. Cloud-native e-commerce E2E testing. Architecture. React, frontend, Spring Boot API, PostgreSQL, RabbitMQ, Docker Compose, Playwright. Tests, GitHub Actions. Test scenarios. User login, product search, add to cart, checkout, order status, logout, debug artifacts. Trace, screenshots, videos, HTML report, backend logs, RabbitMQ, QState. Final summary. Playwright debugging is an important skill for cloud-native full-stack developers. Important concepts include headed mode, debug mode, Playwright Inspector, trace viewer, screenshots, videos, console logs, network debugging, Docker debugging, Kubernetes debugging, CI artifacts, authentication debugging, backend API debugging. Cloud-native developers already understand ALKs, front-end apps, backend APIs, containers, Kubernetes, CI/CD, logs, monitoring. Playwright connects these areas through end-to-end browser testing. Key idea. Playwright debugging helps developers find whether a failure comes from the test, front-end, back-end API, infrastructure, environment configuration, or asynchronous cloud-native workflow.